Hello everybody, my name is Aaron, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about SolidWorks. I hope everyone's enjoying their time away from the dig. I know I'm not. So today I'm going to walk you guys through some basics from my favorite CAD software. Now, when you first load up SolidWorks, this is what you'll see. So it gives us a few options. It tells us the new files that we can make, a part, an assembly, or a drawing. And it gives us some of our recently loaded in parts, as well as some places we could find parts and some resources we could use. Now, I always tell people, if they're ever confused in SolidWorks, SolidWorks has some absolutely amazing tutorials. I would recommend you check those out. However, for this, I'm just going to walk you guys through some of the basics of creating parts, which is the most basic part, the most basic file within SolidWorks. Now, if we go here and we click part, as you can see, it's going to load up a file. Now, one of the things to talk about here is what exactly are parts and what exactly is the purpose of using SolidWorks. Now, SolidWorks is one of the most commonly used CAD softwares in the engineering discipline. It's very, very good at making small parts as well as making large assemblies of small parts. Part of why it's so good at small parts is because it has a really good FEA, or finite element analysis program. And what FEA is it's a force simulation that you can do on some small parts as well as the assemblies of those small parts. But that's a little bit advanced, so we're not going to get into that. So to start off here, you can see I just have this blank part file that I just opened. It gives it a generic name at the top. For this, it's part 1. Over here, we can see this is the tree for all of your SolidWorks changes you make. Everything that we're going to do today is going to show up in some way on this tree right here. Another thing to note, up here is the top ribbon with all of these different tabs. Now each tab gives you different things. The simulation tab gives you some of that FEA I was talking about. The add-ins will show you all the add-ins that you have. Evaluate is some of your measuring tools. But the main two tabs you're going to use are features, which is the 3D part of SolidWorks, and sketching, which is the 2D part of SolidWorks. Now, SolidWorks works by using a 2D sketch of a solid geometry and extruding it or cutting away using that 2D sketch. Now, to make a 2D sketch, you need planes. Every part has a generic front plane, top plane, and right plane in it, and you can see here how they hold up. And centered in the middle of those is the origin. So if I wanted to say, let's start a sketch on the top plane, what I can do is I'll click the top plane here, and I can click sketch. So now I'm in a sketch. That's the easiest part right there. We're almost halfway there to making our first thing. So what you'll see up here is it opens all of these options at the top. All of these were grayed out before, and now they're able for me to click. So if I go here, you can see I have a line. I have circle, spline, corner rectangle, 3-point arc, ellipse, sketch fillet, polygon, straight slot. There's a lot of options. And each one of these with a drop-down menu has more options below it. And mostly what those are either different types of shapes I can make with the same tool or a different position for how I'm going to start my shape. Normally what I recommend is you just keep to some of these basic ones, and then as you develop more skills in SolidWorks, you can try to branch out and find these other ones, see how those work for you. So what we're going to start with is we're going to grab the rectangle tool, the corner rectangle, and we're going to come down here and we're going to click on the origin point right there. And then I'm going to drag out a little bit, and then I'm going to click again. And what that's going to do is it's going to create just a nice little rectangle for me. Now the next thing in SolidWorks that we really want to get good at is dimensioning things. Now, dimensioning is done within sketches, and what it'll do is it will set a guaranteed measurement for a part of a sketch. So if I go up here and I grab this Smart Dimension tool, this is the dimensioning tool that allows you to make those strong dimensions here. And if I click this line and I drag it out, you'll see this number comes out with it. And what that is, this here is the number, is the length of that line. So if I set that to, let's say, 2 inches, it'll actually change that line to 2 inches. And one thing you'll note is it made this top part go black. Anything that's black in SolidWorks means that it is fully defined. Anything that is blue is not. So if I try to drag this line right here, you can see it's not going to drag. That's because it's fully defined. If I try to grab this blue line right here, I'm able to move it because it's not fully defined. And one thing you'll note, right down here it says undefined. What this means is everything within this sketch is not fully defined. Now, let's say I grab the Smart Dimension tool again. I click this top line and I drag it out. Let's make that 2 inches as well. Now you'll notice that everything has gone black and it says fully defined down here. And what that means is that now we have fully defined that sketch and it is not going to be moved at all. Every part of this sketch knows exactly where it's at in reference to the origin, and it knows exactly how big it is. And that's very important, that you make sure that your sketches are all fully defined whenever you go to actually create something in SolidWorks. Because if it's not fully defined and you go to make the part, sometimes that dimension that you forgot and left off, that could be important and it could throw off your tolerances or just make the part not what you wanted it to be. And we want it to be what we want it to be. So now that I have this square piece right here, let's say I want to make a cube out of it, right? How am I going to do that? So we'll go back over here to this tab that we were talking about earlier, the Features tab, and we'll click that. Now you'll notice that the two things that are currently set up are Extrude, Boss/Base, and Revolve, Boss/Base. So we're going to do the Extrude, and what that means, what Extrude is it's going to take that sketch, and it's going to just jut it out as far as I want it. So if I click it, you'll see it'll go to this isometric view for me, and you'll see it puts this little arrow right here and shows me this little preview of what it's actually going to end up being. Now over here on the left is going to be where I'm going to keep track of all of my features. This is the little feature property manager. So if I come over here and I put a distance into there, let's say 2 inches, you can see that it's going to change that size right here. And this preview right here is going to show me exactly what's going on. Now I could grab this arrow and kind of try to line it up. Maybe let's go to 1 inch and go all the way down here and just move it a little bit. But you see, that was time consuming. So it's a lot easier to come over here and just input a number and have it change. So now that I have that, and that's like I want it, I'm just going to go ahead and click the check mark. Now, you saw me moving around in this document a little bit. Now to do that, if you take the middle mouse button and you click, it'll allow you to rotate around the part. And then I can click on all of the faces that I have here. Now one thing that you'll notice is on the left side, it put in this Boss Extrude, right? Now if I click the little drop down arrow next to that, you can see sketch 1, that was the sketch that we drew to make this feature. So every feature that you make over here, whatever sketch you use to make it is going to be there with that feature when you actually end up extruding or doing any of the feature menu items with it. Now, if I ever wanted to come in here and change this, let's say I want to change this sketch or any sketch that I'm working with at all I have to do is come over to it, right click, and click Edit Sketch. So again, I'll show you. If I'm over here, I want to come and I want to change. Let's say I want to make this 1 inch by 1 inch. If I come over here to this sketch, right click, and click Edit Sketch, it'll take me right into that sketch. So now all I have to do is come in here, let's change these dimensions, we'll go 1 inch by 1 inch, and then I'll click OK, and I'll click Exit Sketch over here. You'll see now, it is now 1 inch by 1 inch by 2 inches. But let's say I didn't want that 2 inches. Let's say I wanted to now to change that, that extrude to only be 1 inch. How would I do that? So, same method. I'm going to come over here to the Boss Extrude that shows over here. I'm going to right click it, and instead of Edit Sketch, I'm going to go to Edit Feature. And that's going to open up that feature dialog for me again. So now I'm just going to click 1 inch, click the check mark, and now you can see I have a 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch cube. Now, let's say I wanted to put a hole through the center of this cube. Let's say I need to use it as a spacer and I want to put a bolt through it. How would I do that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to find the top of this box. I'm going to click it, and it's going to open up this nice window for me. Now, if it didn't do that, I could always come over to Sketch and click Sketch. And what that's going to do is it's going to take me perpendicular to that face and open up a sketch on that face specifically. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the line tool. I'm going to grab a center line. Center lines are very useful because they're not solid geometry. so I can draw as many center lines as I want. I can have them going wherever I want them to go, and they're not actually going to affect the final geometry that I'm going to get when I go to extrude or cut extrude or anything like that. So now I'll just drag this center line across, and you'll see it'll go black because I touched both edges of my the face that I was already working on. And now I know that the center of the center line is going to be directly centered on that square. That's what I want. So now I'm going to come over here to the circle. I'm going to find the center point right there. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag out. Now I have a circle. But let's say I want this circle to be, let's say I measure my bolt. My bolt is exactly 1/4 of an inch, right? So let's go 0.25. Click OK. You can see it resized it. Now you see that's gone black. That means that it's good to go. Now if I kind of zoom out here and move around, you can see where that sketch is. It's right on the top of the part, and that's what I want. So I want it to be on that top. That's just so I know which side it's going through. But also, if I only wanted to go halfway through, I want to make sure I'm on the right face in order to do that. So if I ever need to go right back and perpendicular to the face, so I need to change any sketches I made and I moved around, I can do that. All you have to do is select the face and click Control 8, and it'll bring me back perpendicular to me, or to the face that I was working with, and that's important. It's easy to look at things perpendicularly in SolidWorks, but sometimes if you get off tilter, it won't look right, and you just don't want that. So now I'm going to go to Features, and instead of using the Extrude, I'm going to come over here and see these just opened up, Extrude Cut and Revolve Cut. So if I go ahead and click Extrude Cut, you can see it's set to 2 inches, and you can see the preview is just going all the way through. Now for Extrude Cut, I have a few options. If I drop this down, you'll see it go blind, which means that it's a set distance that I pick. But I can change that. Let's say I want to go through everything in the part. I don't care how long it is. I want it to go through any solid thing that it is perpendicular with. Through all will do that. But through all can be risky if you have overhangs or anything like that. You don't want it to go through the bottom half of that. So what I like to use a lot of the times is up to surface. So if I click this bottom surface, if I click up to surface and I click the face that I want to go up to, you can see that it's going to show me that hole up to that face. It's a really useful tool. If I ever change the size of this part and I had it set to up to surface, it'll update that for me without me having to touch it. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And as you can see here, it's now put that hole through this block for me. That's what I wanted. So if I come over here now, and let's say I want to change this boss extrude. I want to, let's say the 2 inches was the correct number. Let's change that back to 2 inches. Since I did the up to surface, you can see that that hole is actually going to continue with the changes I made, and that's really useful. Okay, so moving on from this is going to be the first part that we've made. So that's just a quick introduction to the extrude and the extrude cut, which can be really, really useful tools when you're designing square parts, or I mean even round parts. If you want to make the thing a shaft and you want to put a hole through it, extrude and extrude cut can get you pretty far without really even needing to know the other parts of SolidWorks. However, they can be pretty inefficient. So there's some things they really don't do well. But how about some other tools that will do those things well? So I'm just going to save this part real fast. Just name it square. And we're going to go ahead and open up a new part. So just go new, part, click OK. And you can see here it's going to open up a new part for me. So if I go to this front plane and I click sketch, I'm going to hop right into another sketch here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to draw a circle starting from the origin. I'm going to draw it out. And I'm going to make it, let's say I want to make this 5 centimeters wide. Now you'll notice that this says it's in inches, and I don't want inches. Maybe I want to work in a metric system for once, you know? So let's go down here to the bottom right, and you see where it says IPS? That stands for inch, pound, second. So if I click that, it's going to give me some other options I have here. So the most commonly used ones are IPS and MMGS. Now CGS and MKS are similar to the other two, to MMGS. But it's normally standardized to where you just use MMGS if you're working in the metric system. However, if you have larger parts and you want to work in MKS or CGS, that's acceptable too. But I prefer to use MMGS. So now that I've switched over, you'll notice that it took me out of the sketch. So I'm going to need to get back into that. So I'll just come back over here, right click, edit sketch. It'll open me right back into that. Now you'll notice that it's way too big. So I said I wanted 5 centimeters. It's 12 centimeters. What am I going to do? I'm just going to go ahead and change that. So we'll make it 50 millimeters, 5 centimeters, and now we're good to go. But let's say I want to make a half sphere. I want a half of a sphere. I don't want the full thing. Let me just make half of it. How would I do that? So now that I have this circle, if I come over here and I grab the line tool, let me come down to the very bottom of the circle. I'm going to drag up to the origin. And then from the origin, I'm going to go to the right and click on the circle again. Now you'll notice all of those lines went black because they're fully defined. They know how long they are and they know where they are in reference to the origin. But you'll notice that it's not shaded in like the square was in the last one. And that's because there's 2 regions of geometry here, and SolidWorks doesn't know which one I want to use. That's a problem. Now to fix that, if I come up here to the Trim Entity tool, what this allows me to do is it allows me to trim away things that I don't want. So if I click and drag, I'm going to click out here, and you'll see it'll draw this little gray line. If I drag across this circle, you'll see it'll cut away everything up to these lines. And that's what I wanted it to do. So now I just have this bottom quarter circle region, and that's how I'm going to make my semisphere. So if I come over to features, instead of using the extrude, we're going to use the revolve now. So if I click the revolve /space, it's going to ask me for an axis of revolution. Now what that axis is it's a line that the whole geometry is going to be revolved around. That line doesn't have to be a part of the geometry, although it can be. And in this case, it will be. If it's not a part of the geometry, you'll normally end up with a gap region in the middle from where the geometry starts to where the axis of revolution was. So if I come over here now and I click this line right here, you can see that's going to give me that half sphere that I was wanting. So if I click OK, you can see, boom, I have that half sphere. But let's turn out that that wasn't actually what I wanted. I wanted a quarter of a sphere. Let me go back in, edit my feature, and you'll see right here it has the degrees that I'm working with. If I was to change that to 90 degrees, it'll give me an eighth of a sphere. If I change it to 180, it'll give me a quarter of a sphere. That's what I wanted. So now I'll just go ahead and click OK, and boom, there we go. But silly me, that's the wrong quarter of the sphere. I didn't want that quarter. Is there a way for me to change the direction? Thanks for asking, Aaron. There actually is. So if I come back in here and I click Edit Feature again, I can go back in, and this little tool right here, which is called Reverse Direction, will actually reverse it. So now I can have that side of the sphere that I wanted originally, and that makes me happy, and that's what matters. So now you can see here I have a sphere, and what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to, let's say I wanted a nice hole going through this sphere for me, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and click Sketch. I want to make this a keychain. It's going to be an orange slice keychain, because why not? So if I go ahead, all I need to do is just take a circle, and I'm going to line it up with the origin here. I'm going to come down here a little bit, and I'm just going to draw myself a nice little circle. Now I'm going to smart dimension this circle, click the middle of the circle, and click the origin point, and that's going to tell me how far away it is. So let's make it 1 centimeter down. And then I'm going to click the outside of the circle, and I'm going to determine how what the diameter of the circle is. So let's just do 5 millimeters. So now you'll notice one thing is it's not fully defined, but you think, well, it should be. But if I was to click and drag it, I can move it, and I don't want to be able to move it. So if I click the center point, and I click the origin, and I control click them, so I'm selecting both at the same time, you'll notice that the Properties tab opened up again over here, and it shows me the 2 points that I've clicked. Now, I have the option to actually add relations between those 2 points. So here, I want these two to be vertical, so that way they're lined up. So if I click vertical, you'll see it'll shift that over for me, and now it's all black because now it's all fully defined. Using the relations allows you to set set parts of a SolidWorks file where you need them, and it's very helpful. Sometimes you can have 10 to 20 relations on a single line because it's the most important part of your part, and you want everything else to be referencing it, and that's good. So here we go, and we have this circle here. Now I want it to kind of curve through here and show up on this face. How am I going to do that? Well, similar to how we had the extrude and the extrude cut, we have a revolve and a revolve cut. So if I click the revolve cut, you can see that it's going to ask me for that axis of revolution again. So if I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click this line right here, which was the same line we used on the other one. Now you can see it's going 360 degrees, and I don't want that because maybe I wanted to add something over here that might, interfere with it. So instead I'm going to reverse the direction, and I'm going to say only go 90 degrees. Now you can see where the hole is going to end up is right there, and that's what I wanted. So if I click OK, you can see now I've put the hole through the part where I wanted it. So that's kind of the basics of SolidWorks. With the Revolve and the Extrude tools, you can really make a lot of things. Now, there's a lot of other parts of SolidWorks that I haven't gone into, as you can tell by the massive amount of features that are listed up there, and that's only just the beginning. If you're ever stuck and you just say, hey, I don't know how to use SolidWorks, let's say you're not in the dig and you don't have one of the helpful dig staff that can help you with that. That's okay. Don't be afraid to use the SolidWorks help. Now, over here there's a search bar, and if you change it to SolidWorks help, it can actually search for the SolidWorks help issues you need. Also, if you change it to commands and you're like, does SolidWorks have a mirror tool? Well, look at all these mirror tools it has. But let's say I didn't want a mirror. Does it have a shell tool? Well, it has a shell tool right there. The command search and the SolidWorks help search are very useful tools, and I recommend them for anybody, beginner and advanced, who just get stuck, because sometimes we all do. So that's what I recommend people do whenever they need help with SolidWorks, if they're not able to talk to a helpful dig staff. Now that concludes the SolidWorks help. I hope that you all have enjoyed it, and I hope that it's helpful. I hope that you all are having fun making things and continue to make things that you enjoy. So with that, I'm going to conclude the help session, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Goodbye.